There is a sixth dimension beyond that which is known to man. A multiverse as vast as eternity, as timeless as the Infinity Gems. It is the middle ground between the big two and the indie publishers, between sci-fi and mysticism, and it lies between the pages of the reader's imagination. At the summit of entertainment, the dimension of comics, where a humble service is held. We call this service the Gospel of Comics.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gospel of Comics. I'm your host, The Church of Failure, and with me, as always, my trusty co-host, Ayrton McCartney. How you doing today, buddy?
Long, crazy day, but I'm excited to see how this train wreck is going to go.
It's going to be exactly
train
like
wreck,
that. It's going to dumpster fire, train wreck.
Dumpster fire?
Yeah, either or, both.
Dumpster fire.
Yeah, either or, both.
Did you ever see that commercial?
I think so, yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. I don't see a lot of commercials.
The political ad.
Oh, yeah. I think Jim played it at one point.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to get rid of this dumpster fire.
Yeah. So, the plan for the evening, I have 3 or 4 episodes that I have vetted. I have listened to them off air. They do sound good.
They don't sound like they were stuck in a blender, then shoved up somebody's ass.
Well, it's the compression. That's what it is. I dug into it after the show last week, or Monday. And it's the compression? The compression of the file, yes. The file.
Oh, of the file.
Yeah.
I was thinking like audio compressor. Never mind.
No. It's compression of the file. Because they were smaller files, and I just attributed that to them being shorter files. But
right.
The average file size on one of these episodes is about 20 megabytes, and that's I assumed that the 4 or 5 megabyte ones that were half the size. I didn't really think about the correlation between the size and quality until they were there. I'm just like, it's all from the same batch. They should be fine.
That's what I would have assumed, but
well, yeah. I mean, that's what we get for assuming.
I still have a radio inside my house. So,
Ayrton, you call in from a tin can attached to a string. Of course, you still have a radio in your house. It plays 8 tracks because that's all you have.
No, it plays. Well, actually, it might play 8 tracks too, but no, it's a record player radio combo.
Oh, excuse me, it doesn't play 8 tracks. It plays 4 tracks. My bad. Fucking asshole.
And it has Bluetooth compatibility.
What?
Yeah.
That is the most hipster shit I have ever heard in my life. I need a vinyl player that I can hook up my phone to.
Well, that's how I record my videos. I send the backing tracks through Bluetooth through that because I can turn it up loud enough to get the levels close enough with my guitar amp.
No, that's fair.
That's pretty much all I use the Bluetooth for. Or if I really want to rock out and just turn something on that I don't have on vinyl.
Yeah. Well, doesn't look like a lot of people have showed up to this because this is obviously going to be a trash fire, and a lot of interesting shit has happened today. Started participating in Nick Ricado's Discord server for the first time today, and whoo, buddy, it was a hell of a day to do that. Not going to really get into it. I'm sure it'll be talked about on his show tonight. If you're a member of the Discord server, just go check it out over there. But yeah, it's been a day. You said you had some issues with work as well. You can talk about that briefly?
Yeah, I forget. Do you care if I use the hard C on this show?
C. Oh, cunt?
Yes.
Oh, okay, no.
Apparently not. Okay, yeah, so the governor here is a cunt and decided to announce this morning, something like that, on MSNBC that she's gonna ban all flavored like vape stuff.
Preemptively, before
through
the Juul ban
through
goes through.
executive action.
Yeah,
through executive action for 6 months, and being able to extend it for another 6 months until until our legislature bans it or does something, and then everyone's freaking the fuck out. I'm like, well, it hasn't, and then it's like, well, it hasn't even been filed yet. It's going to take like 2 to 3 weeks to like be filed, through the Michigan courts and stuff, and there's already like like a counter lawsuit from like a trade association and that kind of stuff. So like people were all freaking out and whatnot. So I spent the day just basically coming up with a game plan in case it does go through. And then if it doesn't, whatever, business as usual. So yeah, I was stuck at work like 2 hours later than I was supposed to be dealing with this bullshit.
Good. Well, one of the episodes we have to listen this evening is the second episode is actually Unfortunate Tobacconist. So that should speak to you. We will start out because of the festivities today with the Pokemon Leaf Green that will be being played in the background while your shows are taking place and we're quiet. Notorious Canary Trainer, I felt seemed appropriate.
Nice.
So, and the third and fourth episode, should we make it to those, the Purloined Ruby and On the Flanders. So,
On the Flanders.
Yeah, I'm guessing
hi
Maud.
Well, hi diddly ho.
Hi diddly ho, neighborino. But anyway, without further ado, I guess we should go ahead and get right into it. You guys want to comment and make me do things in the,
this episode
the game?
From the life of Sherlock Holmes will be.
Let us know in the chat. We'll be watching the chat during the show. So names,
festivity. Or
if you want to make us name things, go places, whatever, just let me know, and I'll probably do it. So, anyway, without further ado,
Be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us about another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. Say, and I've got a little something to tell you myself. I want to tell you that if you haven't sent in for your free recipe calendar, I think we've still got enough on hand to take care of you if you hurry. The requests have been pouring in like mad, literally by the thousands. No wonder. It's really a terrific offer. It's a calendar for 1945 and 46. It's in full color, and it tells you all you have to know about cooking with Petri wine. Write to Petri Wine, Petri, Petri Wine, San Francisco 26, California. San Francisco 26, California. But better hurry so we can get your recipe calendar to you immediately. And now let's drop in on our good friend, Dr. Watson. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, Mr. Foreman.
Where are the puppies tonight?
Well, I found them playing with a dead seagull, so they've been sent up to bed in disgrace.
Well, you certainly look comfortable yourself, Doctor. What's that small blue book you're reading, the latest bestseller?
No, indeed not. This book was never a bestseller, my boy. It's entitled Practical Handbook of Bee Culture, with some observations on the segregation of the queen.
Quite a catchy title. Who's the author?
A fellow by the name of Sherlock Holmes. He was engaged in writing it when the adventure I'm going to tell you about took place.
Well, you told us last week, Doctor, that a pair of canaries played an important part in the story.
That's quite right, Mr. Foreman. It was in the summer of 1908, I remember, and I'd persuaded Holmes to leave his Sussex bee farm for a few weeks and to join me in a holiday at the little fishing village of Kingsgate in Kent. We were staying at a charming little inn called the Fisherman's Arms, and for the first few days, our holiday was a delightful one. And then,
I suppose, Doctor, strange things began to happen.
They did indeed, Mr. Foreman, they did indeed. Very strange things. One afternoon, we'd just finished a late tea, I remember, and were sitting outside on the lawn sunning ourselves and enjoying our pipe. Holmes lay back, with his long, thin fingers clasped behind his head, gazing thoughtfully at the multicolored fishing boat, bobbing at anchor in the harbor. After a moment or two, he spoke to me.
Watson, you're really a splendid companion. I can't think of anyone else who would let me smoke my pipe in silence for half an hour without asking me what I'm thinking about.
That's not very surprising, Holmes, after all the years that we've been together.
Well, nevertheless, the gift is a rare one, old chap, and I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, old fellow. By the way, since the half hour's up, what have you been thinking about?
The lack of enterprise of a modern criminal. Audacity and romance seem to have passed forever from the criminal world. Read this note I received this morning, old fellow. See for yourself how low I have sunk.
All right, have a look. Mr. Holmes, I am staying in the same inn as yourself, and as I have had a very frightening experience, so to speak, I thought perhaps you would help me. Please do. It's signed Mary Victor.
An exciting document, isn't it? Written on lavender notepaper, reeking of perfume, and the handwriting is obviously that of an adolescent girl.
You haven't bothered to answer it, of course.
Oh, yes, I have. I sent a message back by our good landlord that I would be glad to see her.
Why, Holmes? You came down here to complete your handbook on bee farming.
Oh, confound it. Those two wretched canaries are getting their sunbath on the windowsill above us.
Oh, I think it's rather jolly to hear the little fellows chirping away up there.
I find the sound most distracting. Let's go inside.
You know, Holmes, those birds are owned by a charming couple, a Mr. and Mrs. Wainwright. I was chatting with them on the stairs this morning.
I'm afraid their charm will escape me as long as their pets continue to tweet in that irritating manner. You've spoken of the peace and quiet of the country inn, Watson, and yet I find that... Come in. Ah, Miss Mary Victor, I presume.
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Please come in and close the door, won't you? Thank you. This is my old friend, Dr. Watson. You may speak quite freely in front of him.
How do you do, Miss Victor?
How do you do, Doctor?
Now, sit down, young lady, and tell me what's troubling you.
Mr. Holmes, I came down here from London to get away from someone, but I've been followed. I've been afraid to leave the inn. Until last night, I felt I couldn't stand being cooped up any longer. So I went for a walk on the seashore. Someone followed me, Mr. Holmes. I ran back here as fast as I could, but now he knows where I live, and I'm frightened. Please help me.
My dear Miss Victor, I'm afraid you must be much more specific before I can help you. Who has followed you down here, and why are you afraid of him?
I'll tell you the whole story. It'll sound strange to you, but I swear it's... Oh, there he is again, down by the gate. I'm going to my room.
Now. Don't you be frightened, Miss Victor. I'm sure we'll be... Oh, I saw. Extraordinary thing.
I don't see anyone outside who might have frightened her. There are 2 or 3 fishermen loitering about. Wait a minute. Here's a young fellow walking up the path. Come on, Watson. Out through the French windows again.
Oh, good gracious me. Here we go again.
I think we'll take the liberty of accosting him. Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
Are you looking for Miss Mary Victor?
Is she young and pretty?
Yes, sir. She is. Extremely so.
Then I'm looking for her. Where can I find her?
I can see you're being facetious, sir.
Well, there's no harm in that, is there? By the way, who are you gentlemen, may I ask?
My name is Holmes, and this is my friend Dr. Watson.
I'm Basil Carter. You're not Sherlock Holmes, are you?
That is my name.
I thought you seemed familiar. I know your brother, Mycroft.
Oh, indeed. Then I presume you're connected with the Foreign Office.
Yes, I'm in the consular service.
Are you staying at the inn, young man?
For a few days. It's funny that I should run into the great Sherlock Holmes.
Why, may I ask?
I was planning a murder.
Oh, really?
But with you
Murder?
gentlemen here, I see that I shall have to be very discreet.
Who is your intended victim, may I inquire?
There are 2 of them. The 2 canaries in the room next to mine.
Oh, canary. For a moment, I thought that you were really serious.
But I am serious. The wretched creatures have been driving me mad.
Yes, I quite sympathize with you, sir. I've been thinking of committing a slight case of mayhem on them myself.
We can take one apiece, Mr. Holmes. Well, I'm glad to have met you both. I'll probably see you again.
Goodbye.
Well, goodbye, sir. Goodbye. I don't like that fellow, Holmes. If you ask me, he's the man who's been frightening the poor girl that came to us. He had a peculiar look on his face when you asked me if he was looking for Mary Victor.
Well, there's only one person who can settle the question, and that's the young lady herself. Come on, old fellow. Let's go back indoors.
Shh. Here comes Wainwright, the owner of the Canaries. Good evening, Mr. Wainwright.
Good evening, gentlemen.
This is my friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
I am honored to meet you, sir.
How do you do, Mr. Wainwright?
Beautiful evening, isn't it? I just took a stroll down to the store to get some more birdseed. By the way, Mr. Holmes, I hope our canaries don't bother you. Little fellows are such a comfort to my wife and me.
Oh, no, not at all, sir. I find their chirruping very soothing.
Oh, I'm so glad. Good night, gentlemen.
Oh, good night, sir.
Good night, Mr. Wilson.
Not Wilson, Mr. Holmes. Wainwright.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm so sorry. I thought you said Wilson.
Good night.
Well, not like you to mix up names, Holmes.
I didn't mix them up, old fellow. I never forget a face. Mr. Wainwright is in reality Wilson, the notorious canary trainer whom I had the pleasure of sending to prison for a 7-year stretch in '95. Some years later, he made one of the most spectacular escapes from prison in the history of crime, and has since managed to evade all efforts to recapture him.
Great Scott, he seems such a sweet old fellow.
Well, possibly he's reformed, but I doubt it. Our stage is set for an intriguing problem, old chap, and our cast is an interesting one. A frightened young girl, a diplomat of uncertain integrity, and a noted criminal. Watson, I have a feeling that once again the game's afoot.
Holmes, why are we strolling along the pier instead of staying at the inn? I thought you said that you were expecting trouble.
I am, old chap, and I'm sure it'll find us out.
You know, Holmes, I'm still completely mystified by the behavior of that girl, Mary Victor. I knocked at her door last evening, again this morning. I couldn't get any answer.
And the landlord told me that she was not seen at dinner last night, nor at breakfast this morning, and yet her room has not been vacated. Curious.
Hello, there's the village constable sunning himself at the end of the pier.
Good morning, Sergeant Blake.
Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson. How are you, gentlemen?
Yes, splendid, thank you, Sergeant, and very appreciative of the weather that you've provided for us.
Oh, think nothing of it, sir. We always arrange that for our really distinguished visitors. By the way, Mr. Holmes, I was reading one of your friend's stories about you last night. The one called The Adventure of Mysteria Lodge.
That was, Wisteria Lodge, you foolish fellow.
Well, maybe it was. Anyway, I was reading it aloud to me old woman. And if you don't mind my saying so, Mr. Holmes, we both thought you made a bad mistake.
Oh, really?
Though, of course, you come out all right in the end.
Dear me, Sergeant, I stand reproved.
Excuse me, Sergeant. Holmes, look. Look at that figure standing by itself right at the end of the pier.
Mm-hmm. Our friend Wilson, the canary trainer.
He's got a revolver.
Here, we don't want any of these goings-on in Kingsgate.
Come on.
Here, you. What are you doing waving that revolver about?
Keep back, the three of you.
I'm the law here. Don't you tell me what to do.
Keep back, I say. I'm not afraid to fire.
Better do as he says, Sergeant. You don't want to trifle with. Just exactly what are you up to, Wilson?
You've caught up with me once again, Sherlock Holmes. But this time you're not going to send me back to a prison again. And maybe the gallows. If I can't escape you, then I'll take my own way out with this revolver.
Wilson, what in thunder are you talking about?
The murder at the inn last night. I did it.
Murder?
I'm confessing in front of the three of you. Oh, you leave my wife alone. She didn't know anything about it. Now, I hope you're satisfied, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
He's pointing the revolver as he heads.
Wilson, you fool, stop it!
Strike me pink. He done it. Over the pier and into the sea.
Get help, Sergeant. It's possible he isn't dead.
Right, sir.
Come on, Watson.
We're going back to the inn, I suppose.
Of course we are. We've just heard a murder confession, but we don't know who has been murdered.
Holmes, what was the telegram that you sent off just now?
A message to my brother, Mycroft. The innkeeper informed me that Basil Carter, the young diplomat we met yesterday, left the inn rather hurriedly in the early hours of this morning. Come on, let's go upstairs.
Well, we'll have to break the news to Mrs. Wainwright, I suppose.
Before we do that, I think we'll see if Miss Victor's in her room. Which one is it?
Here, top of the stairs.
We'll take the liberty of looking in. Miss Victor hasn't been seen since last night. Uh-huh. Unlocked.
Lord, what a mess. Clothes strewn all over the place, open suitcases.
Yes, it
Look
looks
at
as if the young lady had been planning an immediate departure.
Where can she be? No one's seen her since last night.
Oh, I beg your pardon, gentlemen. I thought I heard Mary Victor come in. I'm Mrs. Wainwright.
Mrs. Wainwright, I'm afraid we have some rather bad news for you.
Your husband shot himself a quarter of an hour ago at the end of the pier, and his body fell into the sea.
Is he dead?
We must presume so, madam. I left the police sergeant there searching for him. Sergeant Blake should be back here in a moment now.
So he did it. Oh, after all.
You don't seem very surprised, madam.
He threatened to do it.
Mrs. Wainwright, before your husband shot himself, he confessed to committing a murder in this inn last night.
A murder? Whose murder?
At the moment, we're not quite sure.
Oh, he must have been out of his mind.
Mrs. Wainwright, I'm afraid I must ask you some rather painful questions. Are you aware that your husband was a criminal, that he served a prison sentence under the name of Wilson?
Yes, I knew that. He told me when we were married 2 years ago. But he said that he'd gone straight ever since he'd come out of prison. That's why he changed his name. He was trying to make a fresh start.
You know of no reason for his planning to kill anyone at this inn?
None. And unless you find someone murdered, I wouldn't give too much thought to it.
Yes, if you'll forgive my saying so, madam, you seem remarkably unmoved by your husband's tragedy.
Why should I pretend? We were very unhappy together. This might be the best way out of it for both of us.
Oh, my soul.
My husband carried quite a large amount of life insurance. In the event of suicide, would that be payable?
And on the policy, madam, but I must say that from your attitude, I begin to doubt whether your husband is dead.
What do you mean?
I mean that if Mr. Wilson, or if you prefer it, Mr. Wainwright, wished to disappear in spectacular style, what could be simpler than to pretend to shoot himself, drop into the sea...
Mr. Round!
I'm up here, Sergeant. Ah, did you find him?
Yes, Mr. Round. We fished him out right away. Dead as a doornail. Shot himself to the head, he did.
Well, that disposes of your last theory, Holmes.
Did you find the revolver, Sergeant?
Yes, ma'am. Got it right here with me. One bullet missing. Have you found out if anyone here's been murdered, Mr. Round?
I found out very little as yet. Wait a moment. Listen.
I don't hear anything.
Exactly, you hear nothing. Yet we're within a few feet of the Wainwright's room.
What do you mean, Mr. Harris?
I mean that there is one sound we should be hearing very clearly at the moment. Why didn't I think of it before? The sound of your canaries chirruping. We've heard little else for days. Come on, Watson.
Where are you going?
Your room, madam. I'm afraid I must dispense with asking your permission.
You're already in my room. It seems a little late even to mention the subject.
Here's the bird cage on the windowsill. Oh, the birds are gone.
No, old chap. If you look more closely, you'll see them on the bottom of the cage.
Let me open this door and get one of them out. By Jove, Holmes. They're dead.
And yet when we entered the inn a few minutes ago, they were still chirruping.
But who on earth would want to kill a couple of birds?
That, my dear fellow, is one of the things we have to find out. So far, I must admit, I'm puzzled. We have a self-confessed murderer, and the nearest thing we can find to a corpse is a pair of dead canaries.
We'll bring you the rest of Dr. Watson's story in just a second. A second I'll take, if you don't mind, to ask you if you've ever had a glass of Petri California Sherry. Because if you haven't, boy, you want to remedy that situation pronto. Try that Petri Sherry before dinner some evening. Look at its clear amber color. Smell the fragrance of those luscious grapes. And get a sample of that Petri flavor. That Petri Sherry can turn the usual before-dinner lull into a main event. And say, if you like your sherry as I do, wait till you taste Petri Pale Dry Sherry. Is that ever good? But after all, when it's a Petri wine, it's always a good wine. And now, back to tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure. Strange events are taking place in the Kentish fishing village of Kingsgate. A self-confessed murderer has committed suicide, but his victim cannot be found. As we rejoin our story, the great detective and his old friend Dr. Watson are once again examining the room of Mary Victor, one of the missing guests.
You know, Holmes, the murder that Wilson confessed to before he committed suicide might have been the killing of those two canaries.
I think not, old chap. Wilson obviously loved the creatures and kept them in spite of the fact that they were dangerously apt to identify him with his criminal past. Uh-huh. Interesting. Very interesting.
Huh? What have you found?
This note lying on Miss Victor's dressing table. Here.
Let's have a look. You think you can hide from me, Mary, but you can't. Wherever I go, I shall follow you. So why not get wise to yourself and stop running away? Sounds as if the poor girl was in danger, all right.
Possibly, but the writer of that note was certainly obliging. Though the letter is unsigned, he at least gives us a clue to his identity.
Oh, what clue?
The phrase, get wise to yourself, is very un-English. It's American. Come on, old chap.
Well, where are we going now?
The envelope to this letter has the Kingsgate postmark on it. I should be surprised if that fount of all knowledge, the village postmistress, can't help us find an American visitor.
Yes, I know the young man you must be looking for, gentlemen. His name's Walter C. Bunker. He's been in here to send telegrams, and his accent's so strong you could cut it with a knife. Just like one of the Red Indian fellows you read about, you know.
Can you tell me where he lives, madam?
Oh, that I can, sir. He's been rooming at Mrs. Bell's house, 15 Laburnum Grove, down behind the gas works.
15 Laburnum Grove, Mrs. Bell. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very much obliged to you. You, Mrs. Bell?
Yes, sir. What can I do for you, gentlemen?
Well, we understand that Mr. Walter Bunker has been staying with you, madam.
That he has. A nice young American gentleman.
Is he at home, may I ask?
No, sir. And I'm worried about him. This morning, when he goes out, he asks me where the nearest cemetery is.
Cemetery? Good gracious me. Huh?
I tell him, and then he gives a queer kind of laugh. I'm not sure I'll see you anymore, he says. And then he walks off, and I haven't seen him since. I tell you, I'm worried about him, gentlemen.
And where is the nearest cemetery, Mrs. Bell, the one you directed him to?
About 3 miles from here.
Mm-hmm.
Just this side of Branson Wood.
Thank you, madam. Come on, Watson. The cemetery seems deserted. There's music coming from the church.
Good Lord, it's a funeral.
Or a wedding. Come on.
By Jove, it is a wedding, Holmes.
I'm afraid we're on a false trail, but we'd better make sure.
Quiet, gentlemen, please. The ceremony is just ending.
Just one question. Can you tell me the names of the couple who've just been married?
Miss Mary Victor from the inn, and a young American by the name of Bunker.
Thank you. Yes, we have been following a false trail, confound it. The frightened young lady was merely frightened by her persistent American fiancé.
The threatening letter that he sent her.
Ambiguously worded, when you come to think of it. Anyway, we can cease to worry about Miss Victor. As she is now Mrs. Bunker, I think we can assume that she's out of all danger.
We've got to start all over again.
Oh, no, my dear fellow. The field is narrowing. We'll head back for the inn now, and I have a feeling that we're on the last lap of our strange adventure. Yes, here's another suspect eliminated. This telegram is from my brother Mycroft. I telegraphed him earlier on today to check on the movements of Basil Carter, the young man who left the inn so mysteriously in the early hours of this morning. His answer informs me that the gentleman in question was recalled to the Foreign Office suddenly and arrived quite safely a few hours ago.
Well, now I'm completely puzzled.
And I, old fellow, at last see daylight.
Wish I did, Mr. Holmes.
Sergeant, go upstairs and get the dead man's widow and bring her to my room, please. And then I think I can give you the solution to this problem.
What do you want with me, Mr. Holmes?
Just sit down, madam. You and Sergeant Blake make yourselves comfortable. Now, in the first place, the murder occurred this morning and not last night.
I know what you're hinting at. The canaries. I admit I killed them, but you can't do anything to me for that.
Why did you kill those birds?
I hated them, as much as my husband loved them. And when I knew he was dead, their singing drove me mad. And so I killed them.
But they must have been already dead when we told you of your husband's suicide.
True, Watson, but the lady was fully aware that her husband was dead when we informed her of the fact. You see, she murdered him.
You're talking rubbish.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. How could she have murdered him? We saw him shoot himself before our eyes.
Because when Wilson raised that revolver to his head, he was convinced that it contained blank cartridges. Unfortunately for him, his wife had deliberately replaced the blanks with live cartridges.
But great heavens, why? How?
Let me reconstruct the case for you. Wilson, with the connivance of his wife here, had contrived a disappearance plot. He knew that I had spotted his real identity, and so he planned this rather dramatic exit. Confessed to a non-existent murder, and then, well, had his plan materialized, he was to shoot himself with a blank. Fall from the pier, and apparent suicide.
What a fantastic scheme, but How did he plan to get away?
Well, he would have swum under the water, safe distance, and so made his escape.
Oh, his plan couldn't have worked possibly.
No, probably not, not. But at least it was ingenious. He would have destroyed his true identity and have had his revenge on me by making me search for a murder that had never been committed. Unfortunately for him, his wife was his accomplice and saw in the scheme an excellent way of killing her husband.
You think you're so very clever, Mr. Holmes, but even if it were true, how could you prove it?
Observe this revolver, Mrs. Wilson. It's the one your husband shot himself with.
What can you prove from that?
Ever hear of fingerprint tests?
I've heard of them. But that revolver's been underwater.
True, quite true. But thanks to the researches of my excellent friend, Dr. John Thorndyke, an infallible test has been discovered for recording fingerprints even after immersion in seawater. I applied the test to the prints on the revolver and the bullets and compared them with some that we found on the water glass in your room. They are the same, Mrs. Wilson. Now, does a man let his wife load his suicide weapon? Sergeant Blake, I think it's obvious that the time has come for you to take over the case.
All right, so I did change the bullets. I hated him. I'm glad he's dead. And what's more, I'd do it again.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes, Sergeant Blake?
Well, now that I've taken Mrs. Wilson to the station and booked her on a murder charge, I wonder if you'd mind answering a question.
With pleasure.
This fingerprint test. I'd like to know about that. I never heard of being able to take prints after a revolver has been handled 2 or 3 times and soaked in salt water.
Yes, Holmes, and I'd like to know when you performed the test and took the prints off the glass in her room. I thought that I was with you all the time.
You were, my dear fellow.
Well, then,
I can give you the answer in one word. Bluff.
What?
There is no such test, my dear Watson. It would be almost impossible to expect clear prints after so much handling, and totally impossible after submersion. Fortunately for us, though, Mrs. Wilson was gullible enough to believe me and give me a confession.
And there's no such person as Dr. John Thorndyke?
Oh, yes, indeed there is. A great success last year in the case of the red thumb mark.
You didn't tell me about that case, Holmes?
No, I didn't. It was deliberate, old chap. With your taste for writing sensational stories, I was afraid you might publish the affair.
Huh? Would it have mattered if I heard?
Oh, yes, it would.
Huh?
You would have given away, what shall I say, professional secrets. You would have provided the public, and in particular the criminal public, with a complete education on fingerprints. And when that happens, my dear Watson, we shall have no tricks left. That will be a sad day for detectives.
So far, we have Ma'am and Tyrone and the Charmander Putinmander. That's what we got here, guys.
Oh, we're so getting kicked off YouTube after this.
You're, thank Ayrton for most of this. Nobody was saying anything in chat. Novel Bro, you got here late, so you may not have heard. But, throw stuff in the chat. I'll probably do it in the game. Certain things, obviously, that may get us kicked off of YouTube or out of the question. I don't think there's anything wrong with Putinmander. Although I do think that I missed the opportunity to name him Mandar. Charmander.
Yes. That would have been good. Or, you could, strategically name each one in your party with a bit of the 14 words, so when you open your party...
God, no. Oh, that's... What is wrong with you?
I don't even think there's enough characters for that.
Be surprised. I've seen some things. I'm also attempting what's called a Nuzlocke challenge, so I have to catch this Rattata, or I don't get anything from this area. This is I can't catch a Pidgey here now. I have to wait till the next area to catch anything news. Charmander, David stays. Well, if I lose this particular Nuzlocke, I'll know what to do next time. But
we'll see if you catch it coughing, name it Hiltar.
Hiltar?
Yeah.
Hiltar?
No. Hailtar.
Oh, Hiltar.
Yeah, Hiltar. Or Hiltar.
Why am I naming it that?
Switch the T and the L in your head.
Oh. All right. Well, Novel Bro, since you missed the first three, you wanna venture a nickname on this guy while I get the next episode up and running? This is the unfortunate tobacconist.
This episode from the life of Sherlock Holmes will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invites you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us about another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective Sherlock Holmes.
It began on a summer evening in 1906. I'd been for a long walk in the park, I remember, when I returned to Baker Street and entered our rooms. Holmes looked up at me with a twinkle and spoke.
You look positively glowing with health, Watson.
Well, I had a splendid walk, my dear fellow. You should have come with me. The park was looking particularly beautiful.
Well, old chap, during your absence, I've decided to write another monograph.
Oh, what's the subject this time?
Occupational liability to murder. For instance, the mortality rate is naturally high among policemen and detectives. Physicians are murdered with fair regularity, but the murder of a dentist is rare. And who ever heard of a murdered veterinary surgeon?
It's quite true, but what's the occasion for this little homily?
I've been browsing over my newspaper clippings.
Yeah?
You recall ever hearing of a murdered tobacconist, Watson?
No, I can't say that I do.
Oh, why? And yet my clippings inform me that no less than 3 tobacconists have been murdered in the past 6 months, and all the murders have occurred in the same small shop at the East End of London. Now, why do you suppose 3 tobacconists would be murdered in the same shop? Come now, old fellow. Give me a logical solution to the problem, will you?
Well, let me see. You say that the shop's in the East End?
Yes.
Is it near the river?
As it happens, it's on the water's edge.
Then supposing the tobacconist shop was the headquarters of a smuggling ring. Perhaps boxes of cigars were unloaded from the dock and brought to the shop. Cigars containing pearls or opium or something.
Watson, my dear fellow, you're doing splendidly. You must walk in the park more frequently. You're positively scintillating.
Oh, no, you're making fun of me.
I assure you I'm not.
You're expecting anyone home?
No, probably a visitor from Mrs. Hudson. Go on with your fascinating theory. Now, why are 3 tobacconists murdered?
Well, because they know too much. Perhaps they demand a share in the profits, so the head of the ring decides to kill them.
Plausible enough, Watson. I really must congratulate you. I can see that I'm very lucky in having a biographer with such a lively imagination.
Thanks very much.
Come in.
That's very nice for you. Imagination. Oh, hello, Lestrade.
Lestrade, I'm glad to see you.
I hope I'm not intruding.
Not at all, my dear fellow. Come along, sit down.
Thank you, Miss Holmes.
Anything remarkable on hand?
No, Miss Holmes. Nothing very particular.
Then tell me all about it, Lestrade.
Can't hide anything from you, can I, sir? Yes, there is something on my mind, and no mistake.
And it concerns the 3 murdered tobacconists, I see. Splendid.
Now, how the blazes did you know that? Yes, Holmes, that's pure magic.
Not at all, my dear Watson. It's simple deduction. Observe the 5 cigars peering out of Lestrade's breast pocket. They are of a far superior quality to his usual brand. Obviously, the scene of his latest investigation has proffered certain, well, shall we say, professional perquisites. Am I right, Lestrade?
Of course you are. Careful one, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you. No, I'll stick to my pipe.
Well, how about you, Doctor? Oh, thank you, Lestrade. Right, you. Coronas.
And now, Inspector, tell me about the murdered tobacconists.
Well, how much do you know about the case?
Just what I've read in the papers.
Well, curiously enough, we were discussing the affair as you walked in, Lestrade. It's a strange business, gentlemen. I only got hold of the old story today when I had a long talk to young Jack Longworth. He's the owner of the shop.
When in relation to Gerald Longworth, the taller member of Parliament who battled so successfully against the slum clearance bill?
His son, Mr. Holmes.
What's that?
Nice young fellow, too.
When his father died, he inherited this shop along with a lot of other property in the East End.
Well, how big a shop is it, Mr. Holmes?
Oh, just a hole in the wall, Doctor, like all the other shops in that part of London. Young Mr. Longworth tells me he first rents it to a man by the name of George Grillet. He lives there with his daughter Lily and made it quite a nice go out of the shop. 6 months ago, when Jack Longworth was abroad, George Grillet has a stroke and nearly kicks the bucket.
Kicks the what?
He nearly dies, Doctor.
Oh, kicks the bucket. Very good. I remember that.
And then what happened, Lestrade?
Well, while he's in the hospital, his daughter gives up the lease on the shop. A few days later, an Italian takes it over, and a couple of weeks later, he's found with his throat cut.
Did you investigate that first murder yourself?
No, Mr. Holmes. It seemed like any of a dozen killings we get in that part of London. A shopkeeper cut up, his till emptied, no clues.
Who was the next tenant?
A Scotchman, bloke by the name of Mackintosh. A few weeks after he moved in, the same thing happened to him. That time, I did go down there, but I couldn't find out nothing.
Was robbery again the apparent motive?
Yes, sir, but the killing wasn't the same. He was strangled with a silk scarf.
Silk scarf, eh? And who was the third tenant? The man who was murdered yesterday?
A Hindu fella. A man by the name of Mukherjee. He takes it over a week last Friday, and yesterday we finds him knifed through the back and his money gone. Of course, I was down there before you could say Crystal Palace. But once again, I didn't find out nothing. No knife, no fingerprints on the till, no footprints, just a very dead Hindu.
Was young Mr. Longworth a landlord in England when these murders occurred?
Yeah, that's the funny thing about it, Mr. Holmes. He docked at Tilbury yesterday morning. He didn't know nothing about what had been going on.
Well, I imagine he'll have difficulty in renting the shop after 3 murders.
Well, that's just it, Doctor. That's why he comes to me at the yard. First tenant of the shop moved back there today with his daughter Liddy. And young Mr. Longworth's worried about them. Well, if you ask me, he's more worried about the daughter than he is about old man Grillet.
So the original tenants of the shop are back in residence again, eh? And what do you want me to do?
Well, I thought perhaps you'd be interested enough to come along with me and look at the shop, Mr. Holmes.
I should be very glad to, my dear fellow. Get your coat and hat, Watson.
All right, sure.
So apparently Skype is just going to shit now. Not sure what's going on there. Ayrton just kind of fell the fuck off. Skype closed down on me for some unknown reason. Let's see here. Get him back on the old horn here. Fucking Skype.
Oh, what the hell was that?
I have no idea. It just blipped off while I was, while you were in mid-conversation. I was like, oh, good. Good.
Lovely.
Anyway, Ayrton, if you don't mind, while we've got the episode paused, we had a couple of new people filter in. As you can see...
Okay, I'm just finishing typing out, filling everyone in. Like, all right, let's fill them in verbally.
Yeah, well, got Pokemon. Hello, Matt Christie. Thanks for joining the show here. I've got Pokemon Leaf Green up in the background. We're listening to some Sherlock Holmes. During the course of gameplay, if you want to shout out some names or some ideas of what to do, I'm attempting what's called a Nuzlocke challenge. A lot of rules that go into that. Feel free to look that up and see what kind of torture I'm putting myself through. Right now, beginning of the game, we've got Ismam and Tyrone is the rival. Then we've got Putin-Mander for the starter and the rat Smollett in the party. So we're off to a pretty good start. I know Bulbasaur's the best starter. I wanted to actually have a little bit of a challenge. Because I've run through the game with nothing but a Venusaur before. And that just doesn't seem fair to a Nuzlocke challenge. Like, you can just win the game with Venusaur. Solar Beam, you win. Up until the Elite Four, and then it becomes a little harder. But if you're at a level 100, it doesn't matter. You can just run through everything. Solar Beam, Leech Seed, I win. But
Yeah,
anyway.
especially in Gen 1 games.
Anyway, like I said, if you guys want to throw suggestions or torture in the chat, feel free to. I will probably do it. If I don't, you can give me a hard time. And we are currently listening to The Unfortunate Tobacconist. I'm going to back it up just a few minutes here. I'm going to back it up back to about 4 minutes. Fuck it. I'll just start it over since we had that interruption. Started about a minute in after the advertisement and everything. But we will
All right.
go ahead and get back into this with our unfortunate tobacconist co-host and I. So here we go.
It's looking particularly beautiful.
Well, chaps, during your absence, I've decided to write another monograph.
Oh, what's the subject this time?
Occupational liability to murder. For instance, the mortality rate is naturally high among policemen and detectives. Physicians are murdered with fair regularity, but the murder of a dentist is rare. And who ever heard of a murdered veterinary surgeon?
It's quite true, but what's the occasion for this little homily?
I've been browsing over my newspaper clippings.
Yeah?
You recall ever hearing of a murdered tobacconist, Watson?
No, I can't say that I do.
Oh, why? And yet my clippings inform me that no less than 3 tobacconists have been murdered in the past 6 months, and all the murders have occurred in the same small shop at the East End of London. Now, why do you suppose 3 tobacconists would be murdered in the same shop? Come now, old fellow. Give me a logical solution to the problem, will you?
Well, let me see. You say that the shop's in the East End?
Yes.
Is it near the river?
As it happens, it's on the water's edge.
Then supposing the tobacconist shop was the headquarters of a smuggling ring. Perhaps boxes of cigars were unloaded from the dock and brought to the shop. Cigars containing pearls or opium or something.
Watson, my dear fellow, you're doing splendidly. You must walk in the park more frequently. You're positively scintillating.
Oh, no, you're making fun of me.
I assure you I'm not.
You're expecting anyone home?
No, probably a visitor from Mrs. Hudson. Go on with your fascinating theory. Now, why are 3 tobacconists murdered?
Well, because they know too much. Perhaps they demand a share in the profits, so the head of the ring decides to kill them.
Plausible enough, Watson. I really must congratulate you. I can see that I'm very lucky in having a biographer with such a lively imagination.
Thanks very much.
Come in.
That's very nice for you. Imagination. Oh, hello, Lestrade.
Lestrade, I'm glad to see you.
I hope I'm not intruding.
Not at all, my dear fellow. Come along, sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Anything remarkable on hand?
No, Mr. Holmes. Nothing very particular.
Then tell me all about it, Lestrade.
Can't hide anything from you, can I, sir? Yes, there is something on my mind, and no mistake.
And it concerns the 3 murdered tobacconists, I see. Splendid.
Now, how the blazes did you know that?
Yes, Holmes, that's pure magic.
Not at all, my dear Watson. It's simple deduction. Observe the 5 cigars peering out of Lestrade's breast pocket. They are of a far superior quality to his usual brand. Obviously, the scene of his latest investigation has proffered certain, well, shall we say, professional perquisites. Am I right, Lestrade?
Of course you are. Careful one, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, no, I'll stick to my pipe.
Well, how about you, Doctor?
Oh, thank you, Lestrade. By Jove. Coronas.
And now, Inspector, tell me about the murdered tobacconists.
Well, how much do you know about the case, sir?
Just what I've read in the papers.
Well, curiously enough, we were discussing the affair as you walked in, Lestrade.
It's a strange business, gentlemen. I only got hold of the old story today when I had a long talk to young Jack Longworth. He's the owner of the shop.
When in relation to Gerald Longworth, the taller member of Parliament who battled so successfully against the slum clearance bill?
His son, Mr. Holmes. Nice young fellow, too. When his father died, he inherited this shop along with a lot of other property in the East End.
Well, how big a shop is it, Lestrade?
Oh, just a hole in the wall, Doctor, like all the other shops in that part of London. Young Mr. Longworth tells me he first rents it to a man by the name of George Grillet. He lives there with his daughter Lily and made it quite a nice go out of the shop. 6 months ago, when Jack Longworth was abroad, George Grillet has a stroke and nearly kicks the bucket.
Kicks the what?
He nearly dies, Doctor.
Oh, kicks the bucket. Very good. I remember that.
And then what happened, Lestrade?
Well, while he's in the hospital, his daughter gives up the lease on the shop. A few days later, an Italian takes it over, and a couple of weeks later, he's found with his throat cut.
Did you investigate that first murder yourself?
No, Mr. Holmes. It seemed like any of a dozen killings we get in that part of London. A shopkeeper cut up, his till emptied, no clues.
Well, who was the next tenant?
A Scotchman. Bloke by the name of Mackintosh. A few weeks after he moved in, the same thing happened to him. That time, I did go down there. but I couldn't find out nothing.
Was robbery again the apparent motive?
Yes, sir, but the killing wasn't the same. He was strangled with a silk scarf.
Silk scarf, eh? And who was the third tenant? The man who was murdered yesterday?
A Hindu fella. A man by the name of Mukherjee. He takes it over a week last Friday, and yesterday we finds him knife through the back and his money gone. Of course, I was down there before you could say Crystal Palace. But once again, I didn't find out nothing. No knife, no fingerprints on the till, no footprints, just a very dead Hindu.
Was young Mr. Longworth the landlord in England when these murders occurred?
Yeah, that's the funny thing about it, Mr. Holmes. He docked at Tilbury yesterday morning. He didn't know nothing about what had been going on.
Well, I imagine he'll have difficulty in renting the shop after 3 murders.
Well, that's just it, Doctor. That's why he comes to me at the yard. George Grillet, his first tenant of the shop, moved back there today with his daughter Lily. And young Mr. Longworth's worried about them. Well, if you ask me, he's more worried about the daughter than he is about old man Grillet.
So the original tenants of the shop are back in residence again, eh? And what do you want me to do?
Well, I thought perhaps you'd be interested enough to come along with me and look at the shop, Mr. Holmes.
I should be very glad to, my dear fellow. Get your coat and hat, Watson.
Oh, that's your... Oh, dear, that wretched instrument.
I'll answer it. Hello? Mycroft, how are you? What? Yes. Yes, he's here now. Why, of course. I'll do everything I can, certainly. Let's have dinner together soon, shall we? Splendid idea. All right, goodbye.
Well, was that your brother, Holmes?
Yes. Lestrade, I do think you might have told me the whole truth.
Well, how do you mean, sir?
I thought your visit was prompted by a need for friendly assistance. I didn't realize that you came here virtually on a government order.
Well, it wasn't just quite like that, Mr.
What's
Holmes.
the government got to do with the case, and how does your brother Mycroft fit into the picture?
Not sure yet. But of one thing we may be certain. There's obviously a great deal more in this case than Lestrade would have us believe.
Why do you say that, Holmes?
You must bear in mind, old fellow, that occasionally Mycroft is the British government.
Nice part of London to take a walk in on a foggy night, ain't it, gentlemen? All our policemen work down here in pairs, you know.
Yes, I don't blame them. It's a vile neighborhood.
There's the shop just ahead of us, with a sign hanging out. Hello, there he is again.
Oh.
See that bearded Hindu skulking off around the corner there?
Oh, yes.
He's been haunting the place ever since I came down here.
So a bearded Hindu haunts the place, eh?
Yes, and yesterday, Holmes, the Hindu proprietor of the shop was murdered.
Exactly.
Well, here we are. I'll go in first.
Depressing-looking place, huh?
I'll be out in a jiffy.
That's Lily, George Grillet's daughter. Helps him with the shop.
Sorry to keep you wet. Oh, it's you, Inspector Lestrade.
Yes, Miss Lily. I brought some gentlemen to see your father. This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
Pleased to meet you, I'm sure.
How do you do, Miss Grillet?
How do you do, young lady?
Is your dad home?
No, Inspector, he won't be in till after dinner. Went down to the docks, he did, to see about some cigar shipments. Mr. Longworth's here. If you want to see him, we were just having some tea in the back room.
Yes, I'd like these gentlemen to meet him.
Jack, come out in the shop, Jack.
What is it, Lily? Oh, Inspector Lestrade. And this must be Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, I'm sure.
How do you do, sir?
How are you, Mr. Longworth?
I'm very glad the inspector was able to persuade you to come down here, Mr. Holmes. I'm dreadfully worried about this business, particularly since Lily's father insisted on coming back here. I'm afraid they're in great danger, but I can't make Mr. Grillet see it.
Young lady, I wonder if I might ask you a few questions.
Well, of course, Mr. Holmes.
Before your father had his stroke, did he receive any threats concerning his occupancy of the shop?
Well, if he did, he never told me about him. But it wouldn't surprise me. I often told him his biggest enemy is himself, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I think I do, Miss Grillet. When your father had his illness, who decided to give up the lease on the shop?
I did. No money was coming in, and, well, it looked like Dad might be an invalid for life. Of course, I couldn't run the shop by myself. Anyhow, I never did like this part of London, and it wasn't the right business for Father.
What was his reaction when you told him to give up the lease?
Oh, he was awful angry with me. Said I'd no right to do it without asking him.
By the way, we saw that bearded Hindu again as we walked up just now.
He's
Been hanging around ever since we came back here, Inspector.
Well, has he actually come into the shop, Miss Gwillet?
No, but he keeps walking by and looking in the window. I'm sure if we both went into the back room or left the shop for a little while, well, he'd come right in.
Then I suggest we give him the opportunity he's seeking. Miss Gwillet, I wonder if you and Mr. Longworth would mind leaving the shop for a while.
Of course not, Mr. Holmes.
Make your departure rather ostentatious, shall we say, so that he can't help noticing it. Give us half an hour or so and then come back. Perhaps you wouldn't mind going with them, Lestrade.
But, Mr. Holmes, this is my case.
I know, but in a situation like this, Watson and I work much better alone. We may have to go a little outside the law, and your presence might embarrass us.
You'd never think I was a detective, too, would you?
Very well,
We'll be back in
Mr.
half an hour.
Poor old Lestrade. He gets very touchy as the years roll by.
I blame him. I'm leaving him completely in the dark. Come on, Watson. Behind the counter. No, my dear fellow. Not under it. Not under it, old chap. We lift the flap. So. Now I suggest we crouch down behind here. Come on. That's it. Have you got your revolver, Watson?
Yes, it's in my pocket.
Good. Meantime, make yourself as comfortable as these cramped quarters will permit. We may have quite a wait ahead of us.
Look, Holmes. There's the Hindu now, peering through the window.
Revolver handy.
Yes, sir. Here he comes.
All right, Watson.
Put your hands up. I got you covered with this revolver. Now, my man, what are you doing here? Who are you? Never mind who I am. Just answer my question.
I do not speak very good English.
तुम हिंदुस्तानी बात बोल नहीं सकता?
सकता है.
इको तुम इधर आया?
देखने को आस्ती है. तुम्हारा भाई हमको हुक्म दिया.
तुम्हारा भाई? तुम जा नहीं सकता?
बहुत अच्छा. Salam.
No, you don't, my man. Just you stay where you are.
It's all right, Watson. Let him go. He's on our side.
I wish you'd tell me what in thunder's going on. Who that man was and why you let him go.
He's an investigator from the Foreign Office, old chap. Given his instructions by my brother, Mycroft.
Mycroft?
Yes, old fellow. When my brother fails to tell me all the facts concerning this case, I begin to think these triple murders have far greater ramifications than we ever dreamed of.
Dr. Watson's story will continue in just a second. Just about time enough for me to mention that any meal becomes a better meal when you serve it with Petri wine. And say, you'll find that Petri California Burgundy and Petri California Sauterne are just made to go with food. That Petri Burgundy is a rich red wine that's bosom pals with any meat or meat dish. Boy, what a flavor. And that Petri Sauterne is the delicate white wine that's just perfect with chicken or with fish. Yes, sir, with food, you just can't beat a good Petri wine. And now back to tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure. A puzzling case is occupying the attentions of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. 3 murders have taken place in a small tobacconist shop in the East End of London. As we rejoin our story, it's late at night, and Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, accompanied by Inspector Lestrade, are once again walking toward the ill-fated shop.
Well, I don't see that you've accomplished much, Mr. Holmes, except that you just bought me a nice dinner.
Oh, we're making progress, Lestrade. If only by the elimination of obvious suspects. But there's a pattern to this case, and that should give us a clue.
Well, how do you mean, Holmes?
My dear fellow, consider the obvious motive of these murders, and particularly observe the results they've obtained.
Well, the motive was the same in all 3 killings, robbery.
Oh, no, Lestrade. Don't let the theft of a few pounds from the till blind you to the real motive.
Look. Here's Miss Grillet now. He's coming out of the shop.
Good evening, Miss Grillet.
Hello, Mr. Holmes.
Is your father home yet?
Yes, he is, Mr. Holmes. And I can't tell you how anxious I am for you to talk to him. I'm going to meet Mr. Longworth. He's taken me to the music hall. I should be home just after 10. I hope you'll be able to stay with Dad until then.
Well, don't you worry, Miss Grillet. We'll keep an eye on him.
Oh, thanks ever so much. Oh, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, Miss Grillet?
Please don't go into our rooms in the back, will you? I've left things in a frightful mess.
I quite understand, Miss Grillet.
Well, ta-ta all. See you later.
Let's go into the shop.
Who is it? Oh, it's you, Inspector.
Yeah, these gentlemen, Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do, sir?
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Did you meet young Lily just now?
Yes, she told us she was going out to the music hall with Mr. Longworth.
Yes. I'm afraid we had quite a set to about that. A very strong-willed girl, Lily, very strong-willed.
Am I to assume that you disapprove of your daughter's association with Mr. Longworth?
Yes, of course I do. He's a toff. He's got lots of money. Lily's so blind she can't see that he's up to no good. I'm pretty sure he's afraid I might find out what's really at the back of these here murders.
And what is your theory, sir?
Well, I'll tell you this in confidence. Got nothing to back it up now, you understand. There's been talk of widening the docks around here. That'd make property values go up, you see, of course. Well, young Longworth's been trying to buy up all the other shops along the waterfront here, but they wouldn't sell. If you ask me, he's had these murders done just to frighten people away so that he could buy cheap. Now, I'm not saying that he did the murders himself, you understand, but he planned them. Why, in these parts, it's easy enough any night to get a throat cut for a couple of quid.
Yeah.
That's why I'm glad you're here, gents. You see, I just got another warning.
Warning? What do you mean, sir, warning?
Found this note slipped under that door there not 3/4 of an hour ago.
Let me see it, please.
What does it say, Holmes?
I shall call on you at 8:30 tonight. You know what's good for you. You'll be waiting for me alone. If you try any funny tricks, you'll go where I sent the rest of them.
Well, that's obviously from the killer.
Possibly. What's the time now?
Look, it's 8:20.
I was hoping you gentlemen would wait in our rooms back of the shop. You can hear what's going on in here, and if he tries any rough stuff, you can pop in and nab him.
Just what I was about to suggest myself, Mr. Grillet. Either way, will you?
Oh, yes. Just step behind the counter, gents. Now, through here. Here we are. Ain't exactly Buckingham Palace back here, but you can make yourselves comfortable, can't you, gents?
Oh, don't you worry about us, Grillet.
Oh, I better turn out the gas. If this bloke spots a light under the door in here, he might smell a rat. Now, there we are. Now, as soon as I see him coming in the shop, I'll knock twice on the door, like this. And that'll give you the signal that he's here. Is that right?
Right, you are, Grillet.
All right, now keep your ears open, gents. I may need your help.
Where are you, Holmes? I can't see a thing.
Over here, Watson.
You know, I've got another theory why Jack Longworth might be at the back of all this. You listening, Holmes?
Yes, I'm listening, old fellow. What is your theory?
Longworth knows that Grillet doesn't approve of his having anything to do with Lily. So when he goes abroad, he leaves instructions to murder the tobacconist. The assassins don't know about Grillet having a stroke, of course, so they keep murdering the wrong fellow.
Well, that makes very good sense, Doctor. What do you say, Mr. Holmes?
Holmes? Holmes? Where are you? Oh, bless my soul, he's disappeared.
No, I haven't. I was just exploring. Shh. The signal.
There goes the front door. Somebody's come in. We'd better go in.
Right, Watson, listen.
Take your hands off me. Don't you do that. Here, stop me. Help me. Help me.
We've got to get in there at once.
Open the door. Well, it's locked. Never mind that. Get your shoulders into it. Come on, help me. On here. Go. Come on, one more.
Poor devil. He's been slashed with a knife. Grillet! Grillet!
Well, the killer got away. I ain't going
No, Lestrade, conserve your energy. Your murderer lies there.
But that's Grillet.
Of course it is. Search his pockets, Watson. I think you'll find a blood-stained knife.
Let's have a look. Good Lord. He has a razor in his pocket. It's covered with blood. You mean to say that he slashed himself?
Let's slip the handcuffs on him, Lestrade. While he's still play-acting, he may be more difficult to handle when he realizes the game's up.
Take your hands off of me.
Come on, quick. Come on, yes. Hey. Come on. Very neat, Lestrade.
Yeah. Well, now that I've knocked a wounded man out cold, perhaps you'll tell me what's going on, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, I'm completely in the dark, too.
Oh, it's very simple, really. Grillet has just staged a fake attack on himself. Fool us into believing that Someone else is the murderer.
Yeah, but the threatening note he received.
Composed by himself for the occasion.
Yes, but we heard voices. We heard the shop door open.
We heard Grillett talking to himself. And as for the shop door, that's how he gave himself away.
Well, how do you mean, Mr. Holmes?
Whenever the shop door opens, there's a bell that jangles. You will notice. So.
Yeah, that's right, there is.
There's no bell jangle when we were in the back room. Grillett got us in there, locked the door on us unobtrusively, and staged his little drama.
Yes, but we heard the door creak open and close, Mr. Holmes.
The creak of this flap in the counter would sound exactly the same, my dear fellow. Now listen.
Yes, but why, Holmes? How did you spot that Grillett was a man?
It was obvious from the beginning that since nothing had changed about the shop except the ownership, that the attackers were directed against any tobacconist who was not Grillett himself. Of course, his daughter, Lily, obviously knew what was going on.
Well, I don't see how you figured that one out, Mr. Holmes.
Every remark that she made showed that although she loved her father, she knew his failings. In any case, she gave me the final clue.
Oh, what clue was that?
In very pointedly asking me not to go into the back room of the shop. Of course, she meant the reverse of what she said. I followed her advice when you were explaining your theory to Lestrade.
Well, what did you find, Mr. Holmes?
Miss Grillett had obligingly left a secret door open, a door leading to a passageway that seemed to go down to the waterfront. We'll examine it more thoroughly in a minute.
Yes, but I still don't understand Grillett's motive, Holmes.
Neither do I, old chap. No, I suspect that from the interest of the Foreign Office in the case, this shop has been the headquarters of an espionage ring. I'm afraid the final answer to that question will have to be given by someone else.
Oh, who, Holmes?
By my elder brother, Mycroft. Humiliating, isn't it, Watson?
And what was the final answer to the question, Dr. Watson?
Well, Holmes was right as usual, Mr. Foreman. The shop had been the headquarters of a spy ring operated by Grillett. And many international criminals had been smuggled in England or foreign ships moored up the river.
And did Mr. Grillett hang for his crime?
No, he didn't, my boy. Before he came to trial, he had another stroke and he died.
Probably just as well for his daughter's sake.
Oh, his daughter. She's a very lovely girl.
Did she marry Longworth?
Indeed, she did. As a matter of fact, I danced at her wedding. It was a very wonderful wedding reception. See, you would have been there yourself, Mr. Foreman. In fact, you'd have liked it very much. They served a pretty good wine.
Was it a Petri wine by any chance?
Oh, well, it was so good it easily might have been.
You mean because Petri wine is the kind of a wine you can't forget?
That's exactly what I do.
Well, that's because the Petri family really knows.
I'm beginning to think these guys like wine more than I like scotch.
I mean, sounds like it. Not as good as blue coal, but...
Oh, man, yeah. Yeah, I haven't caught an insect yet. We'll have to see if I get a weedle or a caterpie when I go back into the forest up here. Caterpedo Epstein. I don't know that I have enough Joan Rivers. Oh, Jesus Christ.
I didn't get a chance to mute myself before coughing from that one.
Oh, man. Oh, God. I can't deal with the frame skip.
So what do you guys think of this mashed format so far? You enjoying it? Let us know in the chat down there. Hit like and subscribe. Share this with everyone.
What the fuck are you doing? ASMR? ASMR show?
I don't know. That's what like the
down in the comments. Just let us know what you think, and be sure to like and subscribe on your way out. This is your first time here. We love having you.
Isn't that what like Let's Players do? They sit there and be like, go like and subscribe, mash that like button, share this video with your friends if you're enjoying it. Is that what they do?
I mean, probably. You act like I watch people play video games on YouTube.
I don't know.
But no, I thought about doing this on Monday, but I couldn't get the emulator like up and working on the fly in the background, and I didn't want to just start swearing in the midst of the midst of the show. Well, I just figured having something on screen would be better than just having shit in the background. I know a lot of people will put it on in the background while they're doing other things, but if you're actually watching it, it's got to be boring as shit. So
Yeah.
But in any event,
it'll be fun. We can watch you progress through the game over the next several shows.
Yeah. No. We'll either make it to the Elite Four, or make it to the restart of the Nuzlocke. But
yeah, with that Mankey, you should be able to breeze through Brock's pretty easily.
Oh yeah, that's the point. I actually should have switched him. You mentioned that, but anyway.
Yeah, this is like the one video game that I actually played quite a bit growing up, so I actually can fairly competently play it.
Yeah. Purloined Ruby is the next episode. Probably be the last episode tonight. We'll chatter a little bit near the end of the show while everybody gets prepared for Johnny Rackets to come on. But Nicky Racket, Johnny Rackets is a good name.
That is a good name.
I'm gonna start the Purloined Ruby.
Sounds like an 70s, 80s punk singer from the UK.
Yeah, Johnny Rackets. I like it. I'm going to pour another scotch, start the Purloined Ruby, and then get back to it. I'm going to set all this guy's bugs on fire, and then we're going to find out if we get a Caterpie, a Weedle, or maybe we'll get lucky and encounter a Pikachu.
Smallhead versus Epstein.
And this is why we do this, guys.
I mean that would just be a fake fight, right?
It would be. It would not be the real Epstein fighting. It would be a double, and then he would die because of. We're not going to get into that. That just we will get banned. Basically, Smollett would pay somebody else to do it.
Oh man! Real quick, I'm gonna shill it. If you guys haven't checked out Nick DiPaolo's new Breath of Fresh Air special, you guys should do it. He has a great Smollett joke in there. So,
all right. Well, you heard it here, folks. Go check it out.
It's free on YouTube.
Okay.
Which, yeah.
Maybe you should find a link and put it in the chat, jackass.
I'll do that. Now that you mentioned it.
Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and mute and get the episode started before we run out of time. This one's a little bit longer, but we'll put it when they start talking about wine at the end, I'm sure.
This episode from the life of Sherlock Holmes will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell about another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective Sherlock Holmes. I suppose your dinner is well over by now, so now's the perfect time to get out a bottle of that swell Petri California port. You know, Petri port was just made for a time like this, after dinner when you're just taking things easy. If you've ever tasted Petri port, you know what I mean. It's a hearty, full-bodied wine with a deep red color and a flavor that's just about out of this world. I think that if you had only one wine to choose and the whole world to choose from, chances are you'd pick port. Petri port. That's how good I think it is. That's saying plenty, I know, but I think Petri port will easily live up to all I say about it. Try it and see, and share it with your friends. You can serve Petri port proudly because the name Petri is the proudest name in the history of American wines. And now let's visit our old friend, Dr. Watson.
I'm out here on the patio, Mr. Foreman. Come on out and join me.
Admiring the sunset, eh, Doctor?
Yes, my boy. It's a particularly beautiful one.
Where are the puppies this evening?
Asleep on a favorite tweed coat of mine that's just come back from the cleaning.
And you hadn't the heart to move them, I suppose.
No, I hadn't. The little fellows looked so comfortable. In fact, I sometimes wonder if these... but you haven't come here to listen to a dissertation on the behavior of dogs?
Well, it is getting near story time, Doctor.
Yes, of course it is. Well, just let me get my pipe properly lighted. Ah, that's it. The story I'm going to tell you tonight began in 1909. I received a telegram from my old friend telling me that he was leaving his Sussex bee farm and coming to London for a few days. I hadn't seen the great man for several months, so naturally I went to Victoria Station to meet him. As the train drew to a stop, the door of a first-class carriage swung open and Sherlock Holmes, hand outstretched, jumped down onto the platform to greet me.
Watson, my dear fellow, how are you?
Oh, Holmes, my dear fellow, it's good to see you again. I've missed you.
And are you, old chap?
Carry your bag, sir?
Yes, Porter, and get us a hansom cab, will you?
Right, you are, Governor.
I wish I'd got a spare room for you.
Don't worry, Watson. I shall be very comfortable at the Diogenes Club. By the way, I trust you're free this evening.
Yes, naturally. What are your plans?
I thought we'd go to the theatre.
The theatre? Oh, what play do you want to see?
Oh, I thought we'd go to the Savoy Theatre and see the Sherlock Holmes play. I hear it's enormously successful.
Yes, I know it is, but I've avoided it. I'm told that Sir Claude Horton takes great liberties with your character, and as for the actor portraying me, my friends tell me it's a travesty. He makes me nothing but a bumbling old fool.
Therefore, a visit to the play might be a salutary experience for both of us. In any case, my trip to London is a response to an urgent telegram from Sir Claude himself. Seems to need my help rather badly.
Oh, what's his trouble?
Well, he wasn't specific in his telegram. He suggested, however, that we attend tonight's performance and discuss the matter with him afterwards.
I see. Well, I suppose if you can sit through it, I can.
Of course you can, old fellow. In any case, you yourself are partly responsible for the play's existence.
How do you mean, Holmes?
Those sensational stories you wrote of my modest problems, I should have seen where they would eventually lead to. In time, no doubt, we shall be portrayed on the cinematograph as well.
Nonsense, Holmes. That newfangled thing's only a toy.
I think not, Watson. We're on the edge of a strange new mechanical world. In fact, I begin to feel a certain concern about the rumored developments in wireless telegraphy. But enough of these predictions. Here comes our porter with a cab. We'll tell the driver to take us straight to the Savoy Theatre.
Just look at that line of people at the box office, Holmes.
Very flattering, old chap.
Well, possibly, but I hope it doesn't mean that we've got to wait our turn and...
Excuse me, gentlemen. You're Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, aren't you?
Yes.
I thought I couldn't be mistaken. My name is Frank Ferris.
How do you do, Mr. Ferris?
I'm glad to meet you, sir.
Sir Claude has a box reserved for you. He asked me to see that you are quite comfortable.
Very considerate of him.
Will you follow me, please?
Thank you.
Neither of you has seen the play before, I understand.
No, Mr. Ferris, we haven't.
I imagine it'll be a strange experience seeing yourselves portrayed on the stage. By the way, I'm playing the part of an old friend of yours, Professor Moriarty.
Oh, indeed. I'm looking forward to a very entertaining evening. I presume that you escape our clutches, as usual?
Yes, I do, Mr. Holmes. And I've done it nightly now for 137 performances.
A record that I'm sure Professor Moriarty himself would envy. Had it not been for his memorable demise at the Reichenbach Falls.
Here we are, gentlemen. This is the box reserved for you. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'll go back to my dressing room. Oh, I nearly forgot, Mr. Holmes. Sir Claude asked me to give you this note.
Thank you.
No, not at all. Well, I'll see you later.
Very nice fellow for an actor.
Don't be a snob, Watson.
Well, what does the Claude note say?
I'll read it to you. Dear Holmes, since I telegraphed you yesterday, there have been strange developments. In fact, I've been doing some detective work off stage as well as on. Watch the performance tonight and watch the audience, too, particularly the occupant of the box opposite yours. Please come to my dressing room as soon as the last curtain has fallen.
He's being very mysterious, and the box opposite ours is empty.
No. Look, Watson, look. Someone has just entered. Confound it, the house lights are going out.
The first act's beginning, Holmes.
The first act, yes. Well, sit back and relax, old fellow. Let's see what they've done to us.
Well, and what did you think of the first act, Holmes?
Huh? Oh, the first act, yes. I was examining the occupant of the box opposite ours. An attractive young lady, alone and unusually preoccupied in her program. In fact, one might assume that she was trying to hide her face.
Yes, but the play, don't you think it's ridiculous? Just imagine a crown jewel being stolen from the Tower of London.
Why not? It's been attempted many times.
Anyhow, you must admit that the actor who's portraying me behaves like a blithering idiot. And Sir Claude's interpretation of you is pretty far-fetched.
Far-fetched, but flattering, Watson. What poise, what suavity, and what a voice. I find myself thoroughly entertained.
You're a strange chap, Holmes. No accounting for your tastes.
Look, Watson, look. The back of the box over there.
Good Lord, I could have sworn a man dodged behind the curtains. I don't think the girl saw him, though.
Looked like a foreigner. Huh. I think as the young lady's alone, we'll take the liberty of joining her.
Oh, dash it, there go the lights again. The second act starting now.
And sit down, old fellow. We don't want to attract attention. We'll join her during the next intermission.
Yes, who is it? Who are you? What do you want with me?
My name is Sherlock Holmes, and this is my colleague, Dr. Watson.
How do you do, young lady?
I hope you'll forgive this intrusion, but Sir Claude requested that I keep an eye on you during the play tonight.
Please come in and sit down, won't you?
Thank you.
Oh, this is very kind of you.
You must forgive my abruptness just now. When I've just been watching Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson being impersonated on the stage, it's rather startling to have the real couple walk into my box.
Yes, I quite understand. By the way, just before the curtain went up on the second act, I thought I noticed a man come into the back of this box and then disappear again. Were you aware of his presence?
No, I didn't see him. But I know who it is. He's been following me for weeks now.
Perhaps you'd like to tell us about it, Miss...
Henshaw. Alicia Henshaw. Yes, I would. As a matter of fact, that's why I'm here tonight. Sir Claude Horton's an old friend of my father's. I went to ask his advice. He did some investigating himself for a few days, and then he found himself a little out of his depth, so he decided to telegraph for you, Mr. Holmes. We were going to meet in his dressing room after the performance tonight.
Splendid. And now, Miss Henshaw, what is your story?
It's a strange one, Mr. Holmes, though I didn't realize just how strange until I first saw this play a few nights ago. You see, my story concerns a stolen ruby.
Good Lord, and tonight's play revolves around the same thing.
Exactly. I might as well tell you how it all started. My brother's an officer in the British Army stationed in Egypt. Early this year, he saved the life of a very important native personage in some uprising in Cairo and was rewarded with a magnificent ruby. This jewel he sent to my Uncle Timothy and me. We're the last of the Henshaws, you see.
Did your brother tell you the name of this personage?
Well, he didn't know it, Mr. Holmes. Apparently, the whole affair was hushed up.
I see. Please continue.
Well, the trouble began shortly after Uncle Timothy and I received the ruby. A description of it was published in the papers, and a few days later a message came to us from an Egyptian, Muhammad Ali, laying claim to the stone as one stolen from his family years ago. He sent an expert to our house who examined the ruby under a lens, Mr. Holmes, and then tapped it with a hammer. It fell to pieces. It was a fraud.
Gracious me, an amazing thing.
I'm sure that's not the end of the story, Miss Henshaw.
Oh, no, Mr. Holmes. I wrote and told my brother what had happened. He became very suspicious and suggested that I investigate the credentials of the expert that examined the stone.
I think I can finish the story for you. The supposed expert was a jewel thief who substituted a paste ruby for the real one, destroyed the imitation, and walked off with the treasure. It's an old trick. Of course, you haven't been able to find any trace of the supposed expert.
Well, that's the funny part of it, Mr. Holmes. Uncle Timothy and I gave a description to the police, but it was a very vague one, I'm afraid. All the time, Uncle said the man reminded him of a colleague of his many years ago at the university, a professor of mathematics. He couldn't think of his name, but when we first saw the play a few nights ago, he was reminded of it. The name was Moriarty.
Moriarty?
But Moriarty's dead.
Miss Henshaw, you say you have been shadowed for some weeks.
Yes, by an Egyptian. They've stolen the ruby, Mr. Holmes. Why don't they leave me alone?
That, Miss Henshaw, represents a very fascinating problem, and one that I shall be most happy to help you solve.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr.
Oh,
Holmes.
there go the lights again. The last act.
Yes, the last act of this little play, but not, I fear, of Miss Henshaw's problems. Let's meet after the act in Sir Claude's dressing room, shall we? Well, Holmes, how did you enjoy the play? Very much, Sir Claude. May I introduce my old friend, Dr. Watson?
How do you do, Sir Claude?
How are you, Doctor? I see you've already made the acquaintance of Miss Hanshaw, and she, no doubt, has told you her troubles, eh?
Yes, Sir Claude. And Mr. Holmes has promised to help me.
Splendid. Tell me, Watson, how did you like the play?
It was very interesting, Sir Claude. Not quite accurate, of course.
Well, you have to allow us a little dramatic license, you know. What did you think of Rodney, the man who was portraying you, Doctor?
Well, since you mention it, I think the fellow needs to study diction. He mumbles so much I couldn't understand a word he said.
Oh, come now, old fellow. I think there are times when you're a little hard to understand yourself.
Oh, rubbish.
Sir Claude, I hope you'll meet us at the Diogenes Club, and then we can go out and have some supper.
Excellent idea. I'll join you there after I've taken off my makeup.
Splendid.
I think I should be going home now, Sir Claude. I gave my address to Mr. Holmes so he knows where to get in touch with me.
Very well, Miss Hanshaw, and don't worry. I shall give your problem my undivided attention.
I'll take you to your cab, my dear.
Oh, there's no need to, Sir Claude.
Nonsense, I insist.
Good night.
I'll be back in a moment, gentlemen.
Right, Miss Hanshaw?
Good night, good night. Strange business, Holmes. What do you make of it all?
Very little as yet, but it's a fascinating problem.
Sir Claude really seems to have identified himself with the character of Sherlock Holmes. He gave me the impression that he feels quite capable of solving the case by himself.
Oh, hello. Mr. Claude hasn't left, has he?
Oh, no, Mr. Ferris. He's coming back in a moment.
How'd you like the play, gentlemen?
Very much. Your own performance as Moriarty was most convincing.
Yes, indeed, sir. Congratulations. A couple of times there I had a strange feeling that you really were Moriarty.
Well, that's very flattering, Doctor. Oh, hello. Well, it sounds as if there's some trouble at the stage door. Hey, excuse me.
Come on, Watson, let's follow him.
Right. Hello, it's Sir Claude. He seems upset about something.
Yes. What's happened, Sir Claude?
Oh, there you are, Holmes. I'd just seen Miss Hanshaw off in her cab when a foreign-looking fellow came out of a doorway and got into another cab. I heard him tell the driver to follow her. I tried to stop him, but he got away.
Must be the same man that we saw in our box during the play.
Sir Claude, we have her address. I think we'll drive there at once and see that she's arrived safely. We'll join you later at the Diogenes Club.
Well, Holmes, here we go. Off on another adventure.
Yes, and one that may give us an opportunity of crossing swords with Moriarty once more.
Oh, Moriarty's dead. He was killed when you and he fell over the precipice in 91.
He was supposed to have been killed, just as I was, but his body was never found. It's impossible, or rather possible, that he returned to pour into the ears of Colonel Moran a story as unlikely and as true as the one I related to you on that April evening in 1894. One can never be sure of death, old chap, until one has touched the cold skin of a corpse.
Dr. Watson's story will continue in just a few seconds. Hardly time for me to tell you about a really great Petri wine. Petri California Muscatel. Did you ever walk through a vineyard early in the morning and pick a big, juicy muscat grape right off the vine? If you've ever done that, then you know what to expect when you taste Petri Muscatel. Petri Muscatel is the color of golden sunshine with a flavor to match. Serve Petri Muscatel after dinner some evening, or serve it any time friends drop in. It's a wonderful way to express your hospitality with a wonderful wine, a Petri wine. And now back to tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure. The famous pair have become involved in a strange mystery concerning a stolen ruby, a frightened girl, and an Egyptian who appears to be shadowing her. As we rejoin our story, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson are standing in a darkened alleyway adjoining the girl's house.
Holmes, look. That Egyptian fellow. He's pacing up and down in front of our house.
Yes, therefore we may assume she's safely inside. Seems to be giving up.
He's coming this way.
Flatten yourself against the wall. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Who are you, please?
We are friends of Miss Hanshaw, and we're very curious to know why you've been following her.
I'm sorry that I cannot answer your question, sir.
Now, look here, my man. You're talking to Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
You are a Mr. Sherlock Holmes? I'm greatly honored to meet you, sir. All my life I have known of you. All my life I have admired you.
Then in that case, perhaps you'll answer my questions. Why have you been following Miss Hanshaw?
Because it is my duty.
What do you mean, your duty?
Perhaps I should have said my destiny, Mr. Holmes. For 2 generations now, the family of Arabi, of which I am a humble member, have dedicated their lives to finding the stolen treasure of Asyut.
What on earth's all that got to do with Miss Henshaw?
The treasure of Asyut is a giant ruby. It was stolen many years ago from the family of Muhammad Ali. A few months ago, Miss Henshaw received a mysterious ruby. I have found out many things, Mr. Holmes. I have many sources of information.
Then I must regard you in the light of a rival detective in this case.
I hardly call myself a detective, Mr. Holmes. My life is dedicated to only one problem. Miss Henshaw now says the jewel was stolen from her. I do not believe it. That is why I watch her. If I am wrong this time, and I do not think I am wrong, then my quest must go on. Always it will go on.
Permit me to wish you the best of luck, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night, good night.
Sure we shall meet again.
Oh, why did you let him go, Holmes?
Why not?
He's frightening Miss Henshaw.
But not molesting her, old chap. In fact, it might be a good thing if someone is keeping an eye on her. And meanwhile, Watson, let's see if we can find a cab and get back to the Diogenes Club. I don't want to keep Sir Claude waiting. Flora, has Sir Claude Horton arrived yet?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. He and another gentleman came in about 5 minutes ago. They went up to the library. The other gentleman has just left.
I see. Thank you. This way, Watson. I'm sorry, Sir Claude, to have kept you waiting. We took a little longer, but... Sir Claude!
Great heavens, what's the matter with him?
Holmes, I found the answer. Too late. It's...
No, sir. Don't try and stand up. You're ill.
What are you trying to tell me?
The ruby. Moriarty. The answer. The answer's in the book. In the book.
Sir Claude! Holmes! He's been stabbed. He's dead.
Just as he was trying to give me a message.
He was muttering something about the ruby and Moriarty. And twice he said, it's in the book.
Yes, there's a book still in his hand.
It's a copy of The Tales of Edgar Allan Poe.
His thumb's marking a page. It's the story of the purloined letter. Thank you, Sir Claude. You delivered your message. Come on, Watson. If we want to catch a murderer and a thief, we must go back to the Savoy Theatre as quickly as we can.
Why do you suppose Sir Claude was murdered?
Because I was too curious. Been investigating the problem of the stolen ruby and had found out something. Something he promised to tell me at supper, you remember? And so he was killed by a man who came with him to the club tonight. Fortunately, he gave me a clue by indicating Poe's story of the purloined letter.
But I still don't see how that helps you.
Well, it leads us to the ruby. The premise of Poe's story is that the most obvious hiding place is the safest. Now, what physical object was most prominent on the stage in tonight's play?
By Jove. A ruby.
Exactly. How better can you hide a stolen ruby than by exhibiting it night after night as a stolen ruby before the eyes of thousands?
Well, you mean you expect to find it in the property room backstage?
Precisely. That and a murderer. Wait for us, cabby. Come on, Watson. You have your revolver, old chap?
Yes, I do.
Well, keep it handy. Our visit may not be unexpected. Unlocked. That's good. Come on.
Look, Holmes, look. The doorkeeper. He's slumped over his desk.
You've been given chloroform. We'll take the liberty of borrowing his lantern.
It's an eerie atmosphere about a dark and empty theater, isn't there?
Now, where would the stage properties be kept, I wonder? Hold the lantern a little higher, will you, old fellow?
Yeah.
That's it. Aha, look over there.
A large cabinet. It's marked Property Department.
And it's unlocked. Oh, this is frighteningly easy. Let's look out for a trap. Now, let's see.
Look. There's a ruby lying on that tray.
Hold it up under the lantern, Watson. Exactly. It's as I thought. This is no paste stage property. It's a genuine ruby. In the light of this lantern, it's very hard to... Down, Watson, quick!
He nearly got us. Smashed our lantern.
Yes, he's got an air rifle. A powerful one, too, confound it. There's no flash to indicate where he's firing from. Of course, he's baited his trap so neatly that he knows exactly where we
I'm
are.
going to take a shot at him. I can't see anything, but at least it'll let him know we're armed.
Now move your position. Quickly, Watson.
Just missed me, Holmes. This is hopeless shooting in the dark.
Yes. I've got to switch the stage lights on. Keep him occupied, old fellow, will you? While I try to find the light switches.
I've got him. But he can still shoot, confound it.
Yes, well, I found the light switch. Keep your eyes skinned, Watson. I'm turning it on.
There he is, Holmes. Up in that box.
Getting away. After him, Watson. You can jump over the footlights into the box. Ah! I'm afraid the bird has flown, Watson. I should have remembered that theater exit doors always open from the inside.
No, he didn't get away, Holmes. Look on the floor there. It's that Egyptian fellow.
I hope you haven't wounded him too badly,
No,
old
I don't
chap.
care if I have. He was trying to kill us. No, it's only a shoulder wound. He's fainted, infernal scoundrel.
No, he's a very gallant man. Undoubtedly, he was trying to save us as you shot him just now.
Holmes, what on earth are you talking about? Obviously, he's Moriarty.
No, Watson. Moriarty just escaped through the door you heard clang a few moments ago.
And what's this man doing here?
As a fellow detective, undoubtedly he followed us. Perhaps he preceded us. When Moriarty started shooting, this man tried to capture him and got wounded by you for his pains.
Then who is Moriarty? He must be someone connected with this theater.
It's obvious. Moriarty is Moriarty.
What? You mean Frank Ferrers, the fellow that played the part on the stage?
Again, remember Poe's story of a purloined letter.
But why didn't you recognize him?
Oh, remember, I haven't seen him for 20 years, and you haven't forgotten his genius for disguise, have you?
What incredible audacity.
How better could Moriarty conceal himself than by announcing nightly to the theater-going public that he was Professor Moriarty?
Then he killed Sir Claude.
Of course he did. Sir Claude must have persuaded Moriarty to go to the club with him. Probably he hoped to expose him in front of me, but Moriarty found out that Sir Claude knew too much. Yes. So he stabbed him. Rushed back here to bait his trap for us.
Yes. But how did he know that we'd walk into it?
Well, he knew that if Sir Claude had guessed his secret, then I certainly would, and so he was waiting for us.
Hello. He's coming too. How are you feeling, my man?
The ruby. The ruby. Did you find the ruby?
Yes. Here it is, sir. Tell me, is it the ruby of Muhammad Ali?
No. It is a fine stone, but it is not the one for which I have searched all my life. And so my endless quest must go on and on.
He's fainted again.
Poor devil. Fine mess I made of this case, Watson.
Oh, I don't know. You've recovered the ruby?
Yes, look at it, old fellow. Before I turn it over to Miss Hanshaw, look at it well. Probably its every facet stands for a bloody deed.
It's a beautiful stone.
And yet this lovely bauble has cost Sir Claude his life.
And that devil Moriarty still goes free.
But one day, Watson, and may the day come soon, I shall meet Moriarty again. And when that happens and I finally bring him to justice, then and only then can you write fini to the character of Sherlock Holmes.
Well, Doctor, that was kind of an exciting story. Tell me, did the Egyptian recover from his bullet wound?
Yes, indeed you did, and rather quickly, too, Mr. Foreman. I felt very badly about shooting him, but of course I couldn't help it.
Of course not.
But, you know, if I had to shoot someone accidentally, I wish it could have been the actor who portrayed me on the stage. Wretched fellow mumbled all over the place.
Oh, don't worry about that. After all, you did recover the ruby.
Yes, and a beautiful stone it was. The color of, the color of a fine glass of port when the light shines through it.
By a fine port, I take it you're talking about a Petri port?
Is there any other kind?
Well, all kidding aside, Doctor, Petri port, like all Petri wines, is good wine. And I can tell you why very simply. Petri took time to bring you good wine. You see, the Petri family has been making wine for a good many generations, since way back in the 1800s. And because the Petri business has always been family-owned, everything the family has ever learned about the art of making wine, they've been able to hand down.
So apparently, occasionally, Watson just needs to shoot a motherfucker.
I mean, sometimes you just have to.
I mean, I can attest to that.
What year did this episode air?
1945.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Just funny that the ad's like way back in the 1800s. It's like 80 years ago, dude. Calm down. Not even. No, it was 60 years ago.
Yeah.
I think Country Wine was founded in 1886.
Yeah, something like
that. So yeah, 60 years ago. All
right. But I mean, companies didn't really hang around that long back then.
so your grandpa made wine.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, I shot him. What the fuck you mean you shot him? Well, he's fine.
Sometimes you just gotta cap a son of a bitch.
Sometimes you just have to shoot somebody. I mean,
yeah.
Especially in Texas. I mean, I heard that's actually a legal defense. He needed killing.
Right. But you can't shoot them in the back. As long as they're facing you. I think that's what it is in Texas. It's something very specific like that. If they're like running away, you can't shoot at them. Apparently farmers can still shoot MFers for trespassing, according to Novel Bro in the UK.
I would hope so.
Me too. My sister's boyfriend from Ireland was telling me that a legitimate thing that they do is they have like I don't know, like a wagon or like I don't know, sled type thing or something, and they'll pull it behind like a 4-wheeler or a truck, like through the fields, and the person will be sitting in it with like a shotgun, and they'll wait for like the vermin to go running, like the rabbits and stuff, like in the farms, and they'll just blast them while they're being towed by a truck through the field in like a cart or something.
That seems about right.
It's like, I want that job.
Well, I just want to let you guys know it'll probably be the next episode that we actually get to the rock gem. I've got to get this team up to snuff. Get at least one fighting move on the man key, and because that Charmander, the Mam key, Mike Obama.
Yeah, let's do a quick rundown of your team after you heal there.
All right, we'll look at the cache for the day.
Yeah.
I don't have any other areas to explore to catch one last Pokemon, or we would. But let's just take a look here, see what we got. We started out with
real quick. So area, is that based off like the route you're on, or like the designated area like Viridian Forest? Is that how that works?
The way that I interpret it, because I've caught 2 Pokemon on Route 2 right now, but it was Route 2 separated by the Viridian Forest.
Okay.
So the way I see it is, if the route number changes while you're walking, or if you have to change screens. Like, I'm going to call it that while I'm in that rock tunnel or whatever, I can catch one in any room, but only one.
Okay.
And if I kill it, I kill it, that kind of thing. There's a lot left to interpretation. I believe it started as a webcomic or something.
Yeah,
and,
I know I've seen
people created a challenge off of it.
Right.
But so to start off, we picked our starter Charmander. There was not a lot of people in the chat to make that decision. I initially was going to go with Bulbasaur, but that's literally easy mode. It's not really fair, I don't think, because I can walk through this game with the Venusaur. Just walk through it. So I decided for a challenge I would pick the Charmander, because I never do. And Ayrton said name it Putin, so I named it Putinmander. Then, right after I got the Pokeballs, going through the first route, I encountered the Rattata. Obviously, it was a toss-up between Comey and Smollett. And I just settled on Smollett. And then I believe Novel Bro gave me the name. I don't know that we've used this one yet because I haven't found another undesirable, quote unquote. But he said name it David Hogg. So we'll find something to name David Hogg. Oh man, Matt Christie, fuck Intel, AMD. Oh, it won't fit. Shit, I was about to say AMD has bent over Intel. What's that Ricardo's waiting on? The Radeon? That's Intel, isn't it? I don't think it's Radeon. But he's waiting on a processor to drop this month. So, I don't know. But yeah, I hate that shit because Intel is expensive as shit. It added like $300 to my computer.
Jeez.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Anyway, after that, we encountered a Mankey, and I accidentally killed it, so I just moved on. But you guys were fairly insistent that I get a Mankey and name it Obama. I went the step further, named it Mike Obama.
And it is a female Mankey.
It is. It is. It's ma'am. Speaking of which, that is my character's name, ma'am. My rival's name is Tyrone. Oh, fuck. I should have named him Soye. Next time.
Yeah.
I didn't just want this to be the kick Vic, or the I stand with Vic, kick Vic Pokemon thing. I just,
Yeah.
But next area we went into was the Viridian Forest. It was a toss-up between the Caterpie, the Weedle, and ran into the Caterpie, so we named it Epstein, and requested Novel Bro there. And then the first bird we ran into that we were able to catch, we named Mago Lane. So, pretty good haul for the first evening. Got everybody up to an average level. We're at the grind portion of the show. So, got about 8 to 13 minutes left to just screw around and chat with you guys. So if you have any questions or just want to bullshit, Matt Christie's talking about building an X299 dark system. I have no idea.
I don't know what any of those.
Oh, he's looking to spend 10,000 Canadian on a system.
Okay, so $20 American.
Jesus, no, we're not talking about yen.
Oh,
it's actually more money in American. I think that's probably close to $11,000.
Yeah, but I'm so close to Canada, I have to make fun of it.
Oh, well.
It's like a cultural thing up here.
So, if you guys enjoyed this, we can definitely keep this going, one, maybe even both radio shows, just depending. Because really the only thing doing the radio show allows us to do that we don't normally do anyway is to step away from our computers for a minute to grab a smoke or something.
Yeah.
But
or plan our weekend shows sometimes.
Right. But
if we're behind on that.
I do enjoy putting something on screen for you guys. And guilty pleasure, I really enjoy playing Pokemon.
It's a fun game.
Oh, so Canadian money is worth more per dollar. Okay. I always thought the reverse. Maybe I'm thinking about the pound.
Yeah, I think the pound is
That's still a shitload of money for a computer. I mean, I was just humble bragging about spending $2,000 on this laptop. But even still, I got to pick the interior parts of it, and they were all fairly decent. And it was what some streamers told me that would be sufficient for what I needed on the low end. So I just meant in British pounds. Like, I didn't know U.S. money is worth more, like dollar per. I don't know. Is it?
I was gonna say I was pretty sure the U.S. dollar is more than Canadian. I know it was reversed for like a minute there, back during the recession and stuff.
I'm not an economist. I don't have any money of my own, so I have no business judging anyone else's dollar. I have 3 tiny money vacuums named children.
Right. Vietnamese money is called dong.
Yes,
so
it is.
you can walk around. You can walk around with a pocket full of dongs, which is pretty amazing.
Well, I mean, that's just your weekend, isn't it?
Well, it depends on if I'm strapped for cash or not.
Oh, I got that reference.
Bring more nostalgic feels to the fore.
Oh yeah, I love seeing like classic games and their perfect screen activity to go with the old time radio. Yeah, I don't feel like people were really feeling the Spider-Man X-Men or the old superhero game. I definitely wasn't because I am not good at old games.
Hey, and we can justify this because there were plenty of Pokemon manga that has.
I was going to say that, yeah.
So,
I mean,
the best.
That's actually how I got some of the kids that went to my card shop, like reading anything. Was I got some Pokemon manga brought into the shop, and it was great for like Christmas gifts and stuff like that for the parents. Because I showed them that there were actual words in it, and they were like, "Wait, he never reads." I'm like, "This is Pokemon." Like, he loves Pokemon. Here you go.
I mean, have you read the one that I've read is the Pokemon Adventures that like kind of follows the story of the games, and holy crap! At least like I only read like the first generation ones, but like they get kind of like dark and violent in some parts. Like a Pokemon's head gets cut off.
There was like a webcomic mini series or whatever. It's called Poké Noir.
I haven't seen that one.
And it's only like 3 or 4 pages or panels or whatever that have been created for it. And from what I read there, I'll show it to you after the show. But it's very similar. Like, you remember we read Criminal last week for this week I guess for Brubaker.
Right.
Imagine if the Pokemon storyline was written like that.
Huh.
Like at one point, Giovanni uses an electrode to murder a bunch of people.
Interesting.
Like, or a Voltorb or something. Like he sends the Voltorb in there, and he's just walking around the block, and through a radio he says, "Voltorb, self-destruct," and it kills the nurse at a Poke Center or something.
Yeah, I just found it.
Pretty fantastic. He walks around with like a Hitmonchan and a Hitmonlee as his bodyguards.
Dude, this looks sweet. This needs to be like a full thing.
I know. Trust me. But the thing is, they couldn't get the license for it.
Right.
They'd never get the license for it.
No, but that looks awesome.
Definitely appreciate it, Novel Pro. We'll eventually do that stuff again, but I'm probably going to have to practice those games and at least get like halfway bad with them because, man, it really sucks. Oh, also, I am going to break every rule of the Nuzlocke challenge if I encounter a shiny. I'm going to create a save state until I capture that fucking thing. I just want everyone in chat to be aware. I am going to break every rule of the Nuzlocke. I'll put it in the box. I'll never use it, but if it's a shiny and I encounter it on this, capturing it and putting it in the box.
Hey, that's fair. I think that's a decent exception.
I've read too many like horror stories of people who were doing Nuzlocke challenges and they were like, I encountered a shiny while I was grinding and I couldn't catch it. And I'm like, bullshit, you couldn't. Rules are made to be broken.
Exactly. Now, if you encounter one on like your first instance in, that would be pretty incredible. You'd
One
probably
time, one time I think I spent the better part of a Christmas break restarting my Game Boy. I think it was the flip Game Boy. You know what I'm talking about? The one that was basically a razor phone.
Yeah, the what's it called? The Advance or something like? No,
Yeah,
not the Advance.
Well, it's the Game Boy Advance, but it's the SP, the Game Boy Advance SP.
Oh yeah, SP. Yeah.
So I got one of those, and I was playing. I think it was Ruby or Sapphire. I spent the entire Christmas break replaying the first 2 minutes of that game to get to the starter selection in order to try and get a shiny starter, and it just never happened.
Well, the odds on that would be are astronomical, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. But what are you gonna do? I wanted one.
Yeah. I mean, if you can make that happen, you definitely go to the casino that day and keep that luck rolling over.
That's right. You buy all the lottery tickets.
Yeah.
Every one of them's the major winner.
Exactly.
There we go. There's our fighting move. Mike Obama learned low kick. That was yeah. I'm glad you guys let me make that exception because the first place I went when I made it into that town was to go over here and try and encounter and catch a Mankey or a Spira. But I encountered the Mankey, and goddamn if the fucking rat didn't get a critical hit right off the bat.
Right.
And I'm like, son of a bitch. I just turned around and walked off. But you guys are the best. You let me go get one just to name it Obama. So that probably saved me from having to restart this entire challenge right after this jump.
So, thank you for the exception to the rule, everybody.
I will occasionally forget where hidden items are in certain places I think they might be. That's just old school nostalgia.
Yeah, I remember doing that.
One time in middle school, this is literally I beat the game and then I walked by and checked every single panel in the game for hidden shit. I think you find a hidden nugget somewhere. I just don't remember.
I mean, the trick is you just press A as you're walking through those areas just in case.
Well, yeah, but
that's usually what I would do. Just anytime I'm walking through some area like that. Like the path between, was it Cerulean and Vermilion City? Like that underground path thingy? You can find stuff in there, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
If that's
there's a lot of shit in there. What the fuck? Oh, that's the museum. That's where you get your fossil and your Aerodactyl.
So the fossil, we'll have to name Bernie.
Or Biden.
Or Biden.
I guess that just depends on which one I pick. The Hex fossil or the Helix fossil.
True. If it's the Helix, you'd have to name it Biden because it's got all the tentacles to grab people with.
That's right, and sniff them.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, no. If I get a fossil, what am I talking about? You know what I have to name a fossil.
Huh.
Come on, there's only one fossil that we're waiting on to die right now.
Oh, Betty White?
What? Betty White should never die.
Well, I guess never. I mean,
she's a Supreme Court justice, sir. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Did I say we were waiting on her to die? I mean, I hope she never does.
Well, I mean, not hoping Betty White dies, but, I'm kind of waiting for it to happen because she's literally older than sliced bread.
That's because she is probably quite literally God.
But no, seriously, she was born like 2 or 3 years before they invented like prepackaged like sliced bread.
Well, you know. All right. So here's what we'll do. It's almost time to end the stream and check out Rackets. So here's what we'll do. You will save state right in front of the gym. Save. Oh no. Save state. Right here. So this is
This is actually going to save, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Load game 2019 95159. Set to hotkey F1. So we'll probably do a little bit of leveling for the first episode of the next radio show. Then we'll tackle the gym.
All right.
I definitely want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and having fun with this. We definitely had I would say we had a much better time than when we did the Spider-Man show.
Yeah. As fun as it was to watch you get frustrated, this was way more entertaining.
This was more fun for me, so. But in any event, I do definitely appreciate it, folks. Go check out Rackets if he's not already streaming. He's being late and gay and will be on in just a few minutes. So, without further ado, I will bid you adieu.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.